This is my third time trying to record this, y'all. People always say that. I'm like, what does that mean? Well, this is what it means. Anyway, this video is about the lie that I've heard so many crazy men say on TikTok that only 1% of men are bad and women are just as bad. This is a lie. I'm debunking your lie right now. First of all, look at crime statistics. 99% of sexual assaults are done by men. 90% of violent crime is done by men. And the thing is that most rapes aren't even reported. Only 2% of rapists are convicted. So most rapes aren't reported, and because the women know there will be no justice. So they're not going to drag themselves through the mud and not be believed and ruin their reputation, and the guy's going to get off anyway. The other thing is incest. It's never reported. And there's a woman on TikTok that is very good, and she said that she was abused age 0, like as a baby, to 5 by her father, and she had repressed memories about that. Didn't like to take a bath, had some drug addiction problems, had some bad memories. It wasn't until she was 38 years old that she could handle what these memories were, and had a lot of therapy. And she believes her sister also was abused, but the sister denies it, but has the drug addiction problems. There's also often drug addictions and eating disorders, alcoholism, with somebody who's been sexually abused. So incest is never reported. And my mother was like examples of people that I know. My mother was raped age 6 to 16 by an uncle. She said she never told her parents because daddy would have killed him. So she protected her father from going to prison, and she took the abuse, and had lifelong repercussions, borderline personality, alcoholism. She never told her father that she'd been abused because she was so ashamed. She was damaged goods and nobody would want to marry her. And being a female alcoholic, she went places, was drunk, and she was raped hundreds of times. So this is my mother. And she passed in peace. My sister took good care of her, and she healed from all these wounds. But it was a lot to heal from. And then also, a very good friend of mine here in my town, both her parents were doctors. Both her father and her brother sexually abused her and beat her. Never reported. And she has lifelong repercussions. Eating disorder, alcoholism. This is like, look for those markers. Overachiever, workaholic. Then I have another friend in town. Her sister was murdered, age 18, kidnapped, raped, and murdered on a high school trip in Mexico. Like, I'm not making this up. And then we had a woman over for dinner, and her sister is blind and couldn't speak, and she was sent away 2 years to some Catholic boarding school where she was raped for 2 years by some religious man. Like, you can't make this up. And then a brother-in-law, he was the pretty boy. He was the good-looking one. He was raped by, it's hard for him to talk about it, either a priest, a coach. So, and then finally, also a friend, 5 years ago, her best friend in New York City was murdered by a stalker man. She didn't want to date him. He killed her. She worked at a preschool in Greenwich Village. He waited outside with a gun and he killed her. So this is, it's not 1% of men. I think it's actually 50% of men are rapists, beaters, abusers. I think another 20% of men defend them. Like these men that say not all men and women are just as bad. Women are not just as bad. There's no statistics. There's no stories. I don't know any woman who's an abuser. Yet I know all these people have been impacted by multiple rapes and murder. And I live like in a rich suburb. So it's not 1% of men. The patriarchy is built on rape, slavery, genocide, and war. And the patriarchy encourages male violence, protects male violence, and who the patriarchy protects is men. It doesn't protect women, and it doesn't protect children. So I think then there's another 20% of men who are good men. Like my husband, my sons, men in this town, men in my family. They don't abuse at all. They're great fathers, they're great husbands, great workers, but they don't go out of their way to move the needle. They don't fight for the cause. They're not trying to dismantle the patriarchy. They're just being good men, but they're just quiet about it. Then I think there's the 10% of men who know what's really going on, that this is the fall of the patriarchy now. That these 5,000 years of systemic abuse, oppression, violence that men have done and been rewarded for, that's what gets you powerful. You raped the next village, you took over that land, you made those slaves do your work, you built an empire, and you were rewarded because of slavery, rape, and genocide and oppression, and other men respected you and gave you power. So patriarchy's got to go. And don't come on here and say, my statistics are wrong. They are not wrong. I personally know these people. And I don't know anybody, like I say, let me repeat, I don't know anybody. In 63 years of living, I don't know anybody abused by a woman. But I sure know a lot of abuse, which has been done by men. And the statistics back me up.